In this lesson, we're going to talk about table of contents and how to build them automatically and what's happening in the background so that when things go wrong with your table of contents, you can understand exactly what is Microsoft Word doing to build your table of contents so that you can make sure your table of contents is where you want and it looks like what you want. So to get started, as I am wont to do, let's go to File and New Document. Let's create a title for our new report. Let's say, my new report. And why don't we give it a style? So we just select anywhere in the sentence and I select title style. And we can come over here to the paragraph group and maybe center it. That's good. And then after it, I'm going to hit enter. And maybe a few enters. So I want my new report to be on its own page. So I'm going to create a page break. So I can go to Layout, Breaks, and I can choose Page Break. I can also just simply hold down my Control key and hit enter, and I get a page break. If I scroll back up, you'll see Page Break. It forces everything to start on this new page. Well, I need some data on my new page. I need some text or something. So we're going to use the random function in Word to generate some random paragraphs. I'm going to do equals RAND, open parentheses, 30, comma, 5, close parentheses, and hit enter. And what that did was it created 30 paragraphs, 5 sentences each. I'm going to use Control Home on my keyboard, hold down Control, tap Home, and take me back up to the top again. Because it did create 5 pages, and I'm tired of scrolling with my mouse all the time, so I'm trying to use my shortcuts more. You can use Control down arrow to go a paragraph at a time. You can use Control N to go to the bottom of your document, and Control Home to go to the top of your document. Let me do those quickly. Control N to go to the bottom, Control Home to go to the top, Control down arrow takes you to each paragraph, like that. Okay, so I'm going to do Control Home. So we want to create a table of contents. So we have this great idea to have Microsoft Word automatically insert a table of contents for us. But we want it to be on its own page, and typically a table of contents is on its own page. So we thought, well, let's make some more page breaks so I have another blank page. But instead of a page break for a table of contents, it's a better idea to use a section break. That way the table of contents is in its own section, because we might want to make changes to that table of contents that will not affect the rest of the document. Like we could change its margins, we could put it on a landscape page, we could give it a different header or footer or no header or footer, and we can only do that if it's on its own section, because page break is just like every other page, but a section break makes it a unique section that we can do anything we want to. So with that being said, we're on the Layout tab. We go to our breaks and go to Section Breaks, and we want Next Page. So I click Next Page. Now, nothing looked like it changed because it just stuck it right here. But I'm going to just move it down another layer to here. And I'm going to undo that completely. So we want to create a section break right here. And to do that, I'm going to add a few paragraph returns here, because I want some safe space to make this in. So with a few of these added, I can go right here, and I'm going to go to my Layout tab, Breaks, and choose Next Page Break. And let's see what it did. I still have my page break here. Then on the next page, I have a section break. And then I have some returns right here. So that works pretty well for me, because this forces it to the next page. And here's where I want my table of contents. So here I'm going to make another section break. So break, section break, next page. So now I have this page all by itself. I'll add a few more returns. I have a page all by itself where I can deal with my table of contents. So it's all on its own section right here. So this is where we want to insert our table of contents, on its own page, in its own section. So to insert a table of contents, I just go to Reference and go over here to Table of Contents, and if I click the down arrow, I have two choices. I have Automatic Table 1, Automatic Table 2, and these are awesome for automatic choices. I can do a manual table of contents, and that's a little tricky on filling that out yourself. I can also do a custom table of contents, which we'll look at briefly. Let's choose Automatic 1, and it says, creating a table of contents, start by adding a header style from the style guide text. So it actually did create a table of contents, but scroll down here. It had nothing to add. I'm going to delete some of these extra paragraphs. It had nothing to add. Why? Because this is normal text. So let's go to our Home tab, and up here are all of our styles, right? I'm going to open my dialog box opener for styles, and it opened up here on my other monitor, so I'm going to bring it over here. It is a floating pane. I can put it anywhere I want, even another monitor if I want. But if I hold it right up against the edge of my monitor, it'll actually dock it. So styles is docked now. I can scroll down here and see all of my styles. Even if I go to a different tab, I still see all of my styles. So it's very useful. So I'm on Home tab up here, and over here I'm seeing all of my styles. So here is the deal with a table of contents. The table of contents, by default, wants to build them with header 1, header 2, header 3, header 4. That's how it wants to build your table of contents. Well, no headers have been defined, so there's nothing up here. So let's see what happens. What if I just say this first word, I'm just going to hit an enter here, and an enter here, and an enter here, and maybe two words here. So let's say these are headers, different topics, right? Different topics. So I click my mouse here and I say header 1, and I say, oh, I want this one to also be header 1. So I come over here to my styles pane and say header 1, but this one is header 2, and this one is header 2, and this one right here is also a header 2. So this is header 2, and here is header 2, okay? And this whole paragraph, I didn't mean to do that. I'm going to click it and choose normal and make that paragraph normal. So I have some different headers, and as I click on them, you can see in the right pane it changes. Header 2, header 2. I'll make this one header 3. So header 3, header 2, header 2, and these top two are header 1, and you can see over here they're header 1. So now let's go back up to my table of contents. Now that I've defined some header 1, 2, and 3s, if I click right here on the top of my table of contents, I get Update Table. Now, if you create a manual one or a custom one, you won't get this. You'll have to right-click and choose Update Table. But because this is automatic, it put in the word contents, and it updated this for me. So I'm just going to click this button, Update Table. And it updated. Look, here's my header 1, my header 2. I mean header 1, header 1, header 2, header 2, and header 3. Even did some indenting for me. It shows me my page numbering. Everything's great. And because I'm in the middle of a section break, because I'm in the middle of a section break, anything I do to this will only affect this section. If I click right here, let's say I click in the middle here, I can go over here to my layout, go to margins and choose wide margins, and now this is a little more compact table of contents, isn't it? Because of these wide margins. But it did not affect my margins here in my document. because I put my table of contents in its own section. Very good. Do you also see here that if I hold my mouse over here, it says click or tap to follow? Well, it makes it a little tricky because when I'm formatting it, I keep accidentally clicking it. So I accidentally click it, it takes me here, and I got to scroll all the way back up here. So really what I want this to do is control click to follow the hyperlink. Now hyperlinks are super, and they're only created when you do an automatic table of contents, not a manual one or a custom one. So I'm going to change this to control click to follow. To do that, I go to File, and then I want to go to Advanced, and here it says use control click to follow hyperlink. I check that box and say OK, and you might have it by default, but now I have to control click to follow, so it allows me to change my table of contents. Well, you might not like the table of contents the way it is. So for instance, here it says contents. I could click in front of this and say table of contents. That would be useful. Also, I could check any. Also, I could change any of these. So for instance, these are heading 1, heading 1, heading 2, and heading 3. Well, what about level 2? Well, with level 2, I could select everything, including the very end. Let me make sure I get that again. I want to select everything, including the very end. And then I could maybe make that italicized. And so now all level 2s are italicized. And to make sure that sticks, I go to Update Entire Table. And you can see that's italicized now. Well, how about this one? What if we wanted to change the indentation more? Well, you don't have to select everything to indent. You just can go here, and I can go over here to my left indent, or I can hang my cursor down just a little bit farther and have hanging indent, right? Well, I want left indent, so I make sure I'm hovering over left indent, and I can just scoot that over a little bit. And now any other level 3s will all also be at that. So changes I make here to one item change all of them. But if it has to do with fonts, you have to make sure you select all the way across, including the paragraph marker at the end. Okay. So let's do one more thing while we're here, and that is we applied some styles, and earlier we learned that these styles don't have to look like this. The style for heading 1 can look any way we want it to look. So why don't we just make those changes? What we can do is just highlight any of the style 1s, the heading 1, and change it to what we do like, bold, smaller, and black. And then, let's make that just a little bigger. And then we come over here to heading 1, we right-click the little arrow, we left-click the little arrow, and we choose Update Heading 1 to match selection. Now, heading 1 looks like heading 1. This heading 1 we changed looks like all the other heading 1s. And we can do the same to heading 2. Heading 2, we want it to be black. We want it to be a little smaller than that. We want it to be italicized. And we go over to heading 2 and say Update to Match Selection, and they all match. Now, I just want to point out that didn't change anything up here. The table of contents and how things appear is different than down here. So we can change these independently. But it's just another reminder why we want everything to have a style applied to it, so that if we decide to change a style, all the other styles change as well. Okay, there's your very basic. So there's your basic table of contents theory for creating an automatic table of contents and how you can make changes to it. There's other lessons for advanced table of contents, and also I realize that often you want to use numbering in your headers, and of course you want those numbers to show up properly in your table of contents. So we're going to have another lesson that will be about numbering styles.